Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Box. The season is finally here. Preseason trading camps opening up. So we're back to doing like weekly episodes. We really did not do much this off season in terms of episodes because there wasn't jack shit to talk about. Fabiak, how are we feeling now that hockey is finally back?
It doesn't feel quite back yet, but at least there's like stuff starting to happen. It's not like August where we literally just need to make things up to talk
Uh,
about.
yeah, some of those stuff that we are going to be talking about today is, of course, Kirill Kaprizov's contract negotiations. Maybe touch on a little bit of McDavid and Eichel as well. Dustin Wolf got locked up 7 years, $7.5 million. JT Miller, after being in New York for like 7 months, got the captaincy. Spencer Knight extended. We got some training camp injuries. Guys like Perry, Blackwood, Gerard, Kovacevic, McGrody. The Marc-Andre Fleury PTO for a preseason retirement game. I'm sure we'll have some takes on that. And then we're going to do our Western Conference preview. With that, we're just going to go over some of like who we think the most overrated and underrated teams are. We're going to go through like our 1 through 8 in terms of the 8 playoff teams, who's going to finish the highest in the regular season. And then our Western Conference champions. Paviak, you ready?
I am.
We're starting off with Kaprizov, something that Babiak has always been saying that Kaprizov is going to end up leaving Minnesota. He turned down an 8-year deal at $16 million. That is definitely concerning if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, considering that would absolutely dwarf Leon Draisaitl's 8-year deal at $14 million. I've said it on repeat. He has all the leverage in the situation because the gap between him and Matthew Boldy is bigger than any other gap of an actual playoff team in terms of their best and second best player. So yeah, he can kind of just name his number, especially on an 8-year deal. I think it's probably going to end up being closer to a 3 to 4 year deal just because Minnesota is a little bit in flux right now in terms of not quite potentially reaching their ceiling yet because they still have some young players that have to take steps like a Brock Faber, like a Zeev Boyum, Urov, Ogren. So yeah, if you're Kaprizov, you hold all the cards. There's no reason to sign right now. You're definitely more pessimistic on
I
Kaprizov
am.
re-signing in Minnesota. So I'll let you go after my spiel.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to emphasize that this offer definitely happened and was rejected because Bill Guerin has made multiple press statements since that was
He's
mostly
pissed.
just him being pissed that it leaked out. And at no point did he try to deny that any of the news reported was real. So this definitely did happen. Um, what this tells me is that Kirill Kaprizov doesn't want to stay in Minnesota and just won't at any price, honestly. I mean,
Oh,
just think things through here. What actual advantage does Minnesota offer? Is it a great tax state? No, it's really not. It's on the higher end for state taxes. Are they a competitive contender? Not really. They haven't won a single
maybe in a
playoff.
year or two.
In
In a year
theory,
or two.
maybe, but what's actually happened is they haven't won a single playoff series in the Kaprizov era. Is
Yeah.
Minneapolis this great, exciting city that would be fun for a European to live in? Probably not. There's a reason why a bunch of Russian players tend to like signing in New York when they're free agents or,
Or
other
Florida.
super large cities.
hmm
Um, I just don't really see the reason why Kaprizov would want to stay unless there's significant steps forward on the ice this year. If that doesn't happen, why would Kaprizov want to hang out? I mean, if we're assuming there's no trade and this goes to free agency, there will be options next summer, right? Ovechkin's probably
People will move
retiring
cap,
at the
yeah.
end of this year, which means you have a contending team in a bigger city than Minneapolis with a huge gap at number one left wing. Panarin's contract expires after this year.
Don't
There's a
don't put
big
that evil out
city,
there.
possible
Don't put
playoff
that evil
team
out
with a
there.
huge gap at number one left wing. I mean,
Yeah.
Kaprizov, if he just wants to go to free agency to sign with a much better team than Minnesota in a much more impressive city than Minneapolis, he's going to have options.
Well, one thing I would say, I'm not so sure that Washington or New York are a better team than Minnesota. I think we
Washington
can even say
absolutely is. I don't see how you can
no,
argue
not
that, really.
absolutely, not absolutely. That's
Washington is
hyperbolic.
a solid trajectory. Most of their core pieces are either young or still in their prime. Like, if you take Kaprizov off of Minnesota, they're not a playoff team. They're just not.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, he's a superstar. He's a top 10 player in the NHL.
Yeah,
They're a
so if
wild
you're
card team last year.
Kaprizov,
It's
if
not
you're
like,
saying
but
Washington plus me or Minnesota plus me, who's the better team? Like, that doesn't exist in a vacuum. Kaprizov is the one who gets to make that decision at the end of the day. So, like, he's not thinking about how good is Minnesota with Kaprizov. He's thinking about, like, how much do I have to carry this roster versus how much might I have to not do so much carrying for another roster.
well, yeah, I definitely get what you're saying to a degree, but also Minnesota still does have a lot of young talent. It's not like this is their team for the next 8 years across this contract, and it will just be him. I'm not saying that Zeev Boyum, Danil Yurov, Liam Ogren, Wilver like come close to being as good as Kirill Kaprizov, but they are a pretty promising team where he gets to be that true superstar. I think it's going to be something closer to a 3 to 4 year deal, just because on the open market, $16 million is a lot of money. I'm sure some teams will offer 16, 5, $17 million. I don't know if it would be a Washington Capitals. I don't know if it would be a New York Rangers. I
They
think that
both
those
have
teams,
giant cap hits coming off. They're literally 11 mil coming off the cap from their number one left wing, both of those teams.
I love Kirill Kaprizov. Once we start to get into $17 million, again, if you're Minnesota, you like have to pay that just because, as we mentioned before, he is the superstar player. But for maybe some other teams, your cap sheet might be better off just not paying him that much, especially if you're New York and you're already paying Shesterkin a lot. You already have Adam Fox. If I were them, I'd maybe stay away. Washington might be a little bit different just because they don't have anything really resembling a true superstar. They have a lot of very good players. But no, I think a 3 to 4 year deal will get hammered out just because he knows the leverage. And if he only signs for 3 years at 16.5, I mean, at any point he could just say, trade me. So I think it's just such a tough situation because it has gotten so public now. The owner was saying that we're going to give him a million, whatever, like well over the highest paid player in the NHL. Like it's a disaster right now. But I don't think that he like hates Minnesota like you're acting like.
I don't know if it's like hatred really, but if I'm putting myself in Kaprizov's shoes, what has Minnesota given me to help me out? I mean, they have a decent young group of decent players. That entire organization only has one center under 30 worth caring about, and they spent all summer trying to get rid of him. So,
Eriksson Ek's still only 28 years old. Put some respect on the
did not
doppelganger's
realize he
name.
was only 28. Point
It's
taken.
2015 draftee.
But still though,
No,
right? It's You're not surrounding him with a ton of, like, playmaking talent to help him out. Matt Boldy's great. Other than that, like, are you going out in free agency? No. Are you using your draft picks to get centers? No. It's
the, I guess my one cope as a Minnesota defender is that what the first or the second, third, and fourth years when he was in Minnesota, they had those huge buyout cap hits, $14 million, where they weren't able to go out and get somebody. I agree that this summer they should have been aggressive and tried to do that instead of just like bargain bin hunting Vladimir Tarasenko for future considerations in his $4.75 million cap hit. But they have been restricted. This isn't some, and historically, don't get me wrong, Minnesota's not the most, actually, they did sign Parise and Suter, but like
They
the
are
last
a
decade,
good
they,
free agent destination when it comes to players from the Minnesota area, which, to be fair, in the NHL, quite a few good players are from that area. So they are conditionally a good destination. If you're local to that part of the US or that part of Canada, Minnesota can be a destination. If you're European, absolutely not.
yeah, it's fair. They need to be more aggressive. Obviously, it starts with re-signing Kaprizov, but once they get that done, I agree. Now that they do have a lot of guys locked up at pretty decent cap hits, solid cap hits like Eriksson Ek, Boldy, and hopefully the Faber deal in a couple of years. They need to start being aggressive, and that's why I think Kaprizov will end up signing a 3 to 4 year deal and basically just be like, if you're not, same thing with McDavid probably in Edmonton, if you're not trying to rapidly improve this team, trying to get me a second star player or just another guy like on a Matthew Boldy level, then I could see him wanting out. But I think right now what's not what is best for him, but in terms of just locking up short term at 16.5, $17 million is just re-signing in Minnesota because again, based on what we've seen the last couple of years from him, especially because it's not even like if it was flipped in this year they missed the playoffs, the prior year they made the playoffs. then I would definitely understand all this criticism. But they pretty safely, not safely, it ended up being pretty close. But even within playing 41 games, they still ended up being a playoff
What
team
they
this year. It's
showed
not some.
last
Eric
what
Neck
they
was also
showed
hurt.
last
He only
year
played 40
is
games
that
as well.
what they showed last year is that
That's fair.
clearly this is not a playoff team if Kaprizov is hurt. That's what they showed us last year. They showed us that for
Yeah, yeah.
40 games when Kaprizov's out, this is a genuinely below average team, would have missed the wild card.
I will say Eriksson Ek's injury overlapped Kaprizov's as well, although I definitely agree. But yeah, that's why he's a top 10 player in the NHL. I'm not acting like there's not better destinations. If he ends up taking a 7-by-14 in Tampa Bay, yeah, obviously he has a better chance to win. But I just don't like this piling on of Minnesota like it's Seattle, like it's some kind of hellhole that Kaprizov has to escape when they still do have one of the better U24, U25 cores in the NHL. Yes, they don't have a player nearly at Kaprizov's level, but I think with the depth that they're going to have in a couple of years, if Kaprizov has good regular seasons in the playoffs, I think they could potentially win a Stanley Cup. I'm not saying they'd be a top 3 favorite like a Florida, like other teams, but this team still is very promising. And it all hinges on Kaprizov resigning, of course, because he is such a superstar. He's my number 4 fucking player in my top 50. So I love the guy. But yeah, I still think Minnesota's a good spot. And I think people are overreacting a little bit just because he's the first guy in a while outside of Mitch Marner. But that was honestly like Toronto didn't want to resign him at that point. That might actually hit the open market.
I'm not
So
even
rightfully
saying
so,
you're
they're piling
wrong
on every
about
quote.
I'm not even saying you're wrong about the depth growing a couple years from now, but like, why should Kaprizov care? Like, how many more years of first round exits will Kaprizov want to put up with for the sake of, oh, in a few years, we'll have some nice depth? I mean, in a few years, he'll be in his 30s.
But I mean, like you look at other teams, Tampa hasn't won a first round series in 3 years. Colorado has won one playoff series in the last 3 years. Like there's,
Yeah, those teams already won their
I,
cups and different
that's what I'm saying.
situations,
Like
different
you
whole
might
can of worms. But
like
like in
he
Tampa's
might sign
case,
somewhere
they
else in
got
the
their
free
stuff.
agency, and he might have a better chance the next 2 years, 3 years in winning a Stanley Cup somewhere else. But a place like Minnesota, I think that they can be a high level team, and he's not going to sign for 8 years at this point. It's pretty clear. But if he did, I think that they would be a very competitive team throughout that entire duration,
I just
compared to
don't
maybe some other like New York. If he went to New York, yeah, it'd be awesome. But their team's old as fuck. They're going to be out of it in 3 to 4 years. That's not me being biased.
I just don't see I don't think we're gonna see eye to eye on this one no matter what, really, but it's
We
just
might have to put up like a bet, like if he resigns. If he resigns for 8 years, you do this. If it's like 2 to 4 years, if he hits the open market, I do something. Maybe we'll have to do something like that.
yeah, I mean, I don't think the Rangers as like a potential downswing. I mean, it's we can talk about all this stuff and it's kind of going beyond the scope of Kaprizov here, but what the Rangers do have for sure is a superstar Russian locked up on a long-term contract who is not at declining age. That could be a reasonably deal-changing factor for Kaprizov to not have to be the biggest star in the room because Shesterkin and Adam Fox, you know, Kaprizov would be the best
He'd be the
player, but
big
as far
name.
as
He'd be
like
the
the
big name.
overall star of carrying the team on his back, it's like, no, we can share the load with like 3 superstars. And for one of those other superstars to also be a Russian player, I'm not saying it definitely will matter, but it could. That could be something that makes him more interested in going there as opposed to Minnesota did add Tarasenko this summer. Maybe that was a
Mhm.
move of like, hey,
And
we
they
want
got
to bring in a
Yurov.
friend of Kaprizov in.
They got Yurov coming over. Yeah, I think Minnesota's kind of like the perfect fan media situation because the fans are extremely passionate, but you don't have like the Canadian level of media like psychopaths, and you don't have the national media covering you. I know that doesn't really play that much of a factor, but I think Minnesota has a pretty good blend when it comes to that. Don't roll out my New York Islanders, man. They got Sorokin, Romanov,
Yeah, absolutely, it's
Shamanov,
possible. I mean,
Sablakov,
the Islanders have
Varlamov.
money. They play in a bigger market.
They're little
Um,
St. Petersburg right now, man. It's fucking nuts. It's all building. It's all building to getting Kaprizov. After we get another top 5 pick, you want to talk about present and future? Kaprizov coming. That's gonna be nuts. Any thoughts on McDavid? I feel like that one, like yeah, everybody's playing that one up just because he is the greatest player. right now,
McDavid's
best
going to
player.
accept. The only question with McDavid, honestly, is if he's going to do the max term extension or if he's going to say, I'm here for 3 years. If we don't win a cup in 3 years, I'm out. Because both of
Yeah,
those are possible, but I don't think him going to market is realistic.
yeah, the Kaprizov one, as much as I do want to think that he signed in Minnesota, I'd say, yeah, there's like a 30% chance that he ends up leaving in some form or fashion. McDavid, like, you just don't see true legends ring chase or try to go to a better situation before they win with their actual team. I'm trying to think, has that, I mean, Ray Bork, he was 38 years old when he fucking left. Like, he
Yeah,
put
Ray
his time
Bork's
in with the
situation
Boston
was a mercy
Bruins.
killing
Yeah,
as far as cup facing.
yeah,
Um,
so yeah, I just maybe he signs that 3 to 4 year deal, and then eventually, if they can't put anything around him, but no, I mean, like, they made back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. The fact people are acting like similar to Minnesota that there's some kind of complete shit show. And don't get me wrong, like, they're a team with a lot of flaws, but at the end of the day, I still think he's easily gonna resign. Jack Eichel is like the ultimate lock to resign in my books. Like, he's been in Buffalo, he's been in a bad situation, he's won a Stanley Cup. That's gonna be lock. I could not see a
Eichel, I
reality where he
think
doesn't resign.
97% chance that he stays. And the other 3% is just him saying, I got my ring. It's whatever. Time to chase the biggest money possible and just
Seven
have
X
like
18, yeah.
Chicago and San Jose bid against each other to see who can offer him the most money. But I
No,
think
because he's heading to
extremely
Boston. He's heading to
likely.
Boston. He's a Boston boy. He's headed to Boston. I remember when they used to push those narratives with he was potentially getting traded. We're going to move on from unrestricted free agents in 2026 now to restricted free agents. Dustin Wolf, 7 years, $7.5 million. I freaking love this deal. I know that you're a little bit down on Wolf at least next season. I just think that if he's like the most proven at every single level dominant, that I'm more than willing to give him 7.5, and he's only 24 years old. Like, even if he's just an above average starter, like the 11th to 14th best goalie on the duration of this deal, it's a good contract with the way the salary cap is rising. And if you're Calgary, you're not going to be good probably the first 2 years of this or series contending. So why not lock him up instead of him potentially replicating the season? And then you're looking at an 8 by 8.59. What do you think?
Um, I think it's a long-term goalie deal for a guy with not a huge track record. It could be worse. I mean, Wolf, as you said, he's been a highly regarded prospect at every level. So it's not like you're paying a guy who was like a nobody for years
It's
and
not a
then at
fluke.
age
Yeah.
27 has a great year and you lock him up long
Billy
term.
Rousseau.
Yeah, several guys fit that. Like every goalie that Carolina played for 1 year and then let walk in free agency for way too much money. Um, but
I mean,
Wolf's like a
Aiden Hill,
fun.
our boy Aiden Hill, even he was a
Aiden
little bit
Hill's a great
shaky. Yeah.
example of that. Yeah, he has one good season at, like, age 28 after spending several years as a backup. That's not a recipe for long-term buying. A top prospect having a good rookie year is a fair enough excuse
Mhm.
for long-term buying, although I do think it's kind of funny that you bring up you know, I'm down on him for next year, but you're saying if he's good next year, you might be stuck paying him more, like 8 by 8.5. Well, if he's not good next year, not even because it's his own fault, but because Calgary might be really bad next year, you maybe could have got him for cheaper. I don't think you needed to make this move now, but it's fine. I'm not gonna say I hate it. I'm just giving like a counterpoint. I don't love
Yeah,
it.
that's
It's
fair.
fine.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that his counting stats might be worse next season, but he'll probably still have really good analytics. Like, he could have like 12 goals to have expected and like a 902 from that perspective. But obviously, the agents would point to the advanced stats in that situation compared to just the save percentage. But yeah, his resume is a 935 and 46 games in 2020, the WHL, one goalie of the year, then a 941 goalie of the year, first 2 years in the AHL, goalie of the year, MVP, goalie of the year. And yeah, he struggled once he first made the jump to the NHL with an 893 in 17 games. But he, again, that season, he still had a 922 and 36 AHL games. For Calgary, like the Connor Zary one, I didn't like a 3 year deal that much, but it made some sense just because he was so injury prone this year and last year. But now they have him and Coronado. I know you also weren't that high in the Coronado one, but I think that that's fantastic that they have them locked up at
I
$14
think
million for like 6 years overlapping for a potential franchise goalie and a potential, I'm not going to say like elite first line winger, but a first line winger.
I
That's
think
great
it
value.
brings some risk, timeline-wise with Calgary, because I don't think that current group of young players is nearly good enough to, like, open a new window for Calgary.
Yeah.
So they might just end up getting those guys prime while they're in the post-Kadri Huberdeau rebuild, and it might end up being, like, 4 years of hanging in the middle, not being bad enough to get top picks, not being good enough to even get a wild card spot. I know this past season they were really close, but I'll be blunt, that was a total fluke, and I'd be shocked if they even came close again. I don't see them
Yeah.
hitting 90 points.
We'll talk about that in the Western Conference preview, maybe. But yeah, this is really the make or break year for them because, as you mentioned, like if they get a top 7, top 8 pick and get in what's shaping up to be a draft with a lot of potential forward difference makers, like legit elite first liners, that could make this retool work. But if they do get caught yet again being a 88 to 95 point team, and even if they make the playoffs, like then you're going to see once Kadri and Huberto start to decline and Uyghur, then that young talent comes up, and then they're just in this weird spot where they're not good enough to actually do anything serious, but they're too good to tank it up. So yeah, next year definitely needs to be a tank year for the Calgary Flames. You got to suck. You got to trade Rasmus Anderson. We are going to move on to the Big Apple. Miller has been named the captain of the New York Rangers. I think it kind of just felt like, not even as like a biased Islanders fan, just like hollow and lackluster a little bit. Like I didn't see a lot of like buzz for it. It's kind of like a okay, like interesting. Like nobody really earned it last season. If anything, people lost it because the season went so fucking bad. But yeah, interesting choice to get the guy that basically got ran out of Vancouver. Maybe they wanted just a fiery guy that can get the team hyped up. But yeah, it doesn't really move me one way or the other. I don't know. What do you
Uh,
think? You got any
it
hot
it
takes?
does move me. I'm playing with you here. It moves me because the New York Rangers have a fantastic history of captains that are not well liked in Vancouver. I
Yeah.
see the trends.
That's
No, but I honestly I agree with you that it's what this tells me seriously is that they're trying as hard as possible to break from last year's locker room. This is
Mhm.
the front office's way, along with trading away Kreider was already the front office's way of doing that, but this is everyone from top to bottom admitting the vibes last year were so rancid. The only way to pick a captain is to grab a guy who wasn't there last year because
Mhm.
everyone who was there last year has some share of the blame in the toxic environment.
Yeah, just one of those things where like Mika Zibanejad doesn't really give off caffeine to me. Adam Fox, based on how his career started in the NHL, forcing his way around. I don't know if I want that guy as my captain. And yeah, Trocheck, after regressing a decent amount, maybe you don't want to pick him because you might be trying to move off him in a couple of years. Meanwhile, JT Miller by default is pretty easily their second best forward right now at a pretty reasonable $8 million.
He could be
Maybe in
their
a couple of years,
best.
I still think Panarin. I mean, best overall,
He
like
could
what he
be.
brings
He
to the
could
table
be.
in terms of two way, in terms of physicality. But no, I still
In
think
terms of
Panarin's best
Panarin's
forward.
probably going to decline going forward, right? Panarin's probably at the age where this season will be worse than last season.
Yeah, but Miller's like 32, 33 in his own right. He's old as hell too. They're old. That's why they're all washed up. Yeah, but yeah, Panarin did take a decent jump back in terms of production last year. But yeah, it just seems fine. It is what it is. They probably should have just went like captainless this year and just seen how it went. Probably because imagine it goes to shit and JT Miller loses his fucking mind and starts chewing people out. Hopefully, it doesn't get ugly like that in New York this season.
I kind of hope
You have
it
anything
does.
else?
It's more fun when the
I'm
Rangers locker
joking.
room is
I'm
toxic.
joking. I hope it's a total shit show. I hope he gets traded after the season or something like this. I hope it is. I hope he bullies Lafreniere out of New York, and then he turns into a superstar. But okay, training camps are open, and we've had some injuries that have come out. Jonathan Kovacevic of the New Jersey Devils might be out till New Year's. Brutal for the Devils, good for Simone Nemec in terms of getting an everyday NHL lineup for the first 2 to 3 months, maybe. Rucker McGroarty is going to be out for a little bit of time. That's definitely unfortunate considering Pittsburgh was going to go like the younger route this season. He was actually pretty good in the AHL. Ovechkin was hurt at practice. No like details on that, but that would absolutely suck for the Washington Capitals if that's anything serious, and could potentially put them out of the playoffs behind like a New York Rangers if it is. Nick Paul is going to be out till mid-November, so about a month. He's one of the more underrated players in my opinion, like forwards in the NHL, really good third line center for Tampa the last couple of years, but they'll still be a playoff team. UPL might be hurt, and is hurt, and as a result, they had to find Georgiev. What do you think about that? UPL isn't even that good though. That's that
Nothing
shift
about
you
their
on
goalie
Buffalo.
situation is gonna. Either Devin Levy is gonna develop into a real starter, or everything about that goalie situation is ruined, no matter what happens there.
Yeah,
Right? Like, I don't think
I don't think
UPL
they're even going to give
being
him the net again.
good or
Like he,
bad as their backup going into the year is going to be a huge factor one way or the other.
Yeah, and then Corey Perry 6 to 8 weeks, just like Pete Ken Holland immediately after signing him to what, like $3 million, like gets hurt for 6 to 8 weeks. Blackwood might be hurt, and Sam Gerard, who seems to always be hurt, is hurt yet again. Those are just the injury roundup. Now we're going to go on to another extension. Funny enough, from the first goalie that was drafted in the 2019 draft. I think Wolf might have been the last one. 3 years, $5.83 million to Spencer Knight in the Chicago Blackhawks. For me, this is just like similarly to Thatcher Demko. I don't know why you do this the season before when there's so much uncertainty about Wolf and the Knight in the last couple of years in terms of being available and being consistently good. It's Chicago though, so they like don't really care that much about their cap hit, at least the first like 2 years of this deal. But yeah, it's interesting. He's a UFA at the end of it too. So like people are saying, like, oh, it's just a bridge to see what he has. You're walking him to unrestricted free agency. So obviously you want him to pop off, but if he does, one, you're probably not even gonna be like a playoff team until maybe that last season. But yeah, then you're gonna have to give him by then, if he's a solid starter, an 8 by 9, he's gonna be like solid to good starter money. So yeah, it's an interesting move by Chicago. I definitely would have just let this season play out. What do you think?
Agree on taking the wait and see approach. Pretty much every contract Chicago's given out in the last like 3 years has been a not good contract. And people keep saying it doesn't matter because like they're not contending. Who cares if they're paying too much money? But like at some point it has to start mattering a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
if if we're fast forwarding 3 years into the future and we're still talking about, Chicago maybe overpaid, but it doesn't matter. They're not contenders. How much longer do you expect them to keep the Bedard era potential core? Like, how many years of their cap
It's tough
truly
because
not mattering can we sit through, right?
I think this year they didn't sign any like crazy, and they didn't even sign any crazy deals to begin with. They were all 1 to 2 year deals.
No, it
So,
wasn't
uh,
anything crazy, but it was constant, like, oh, that's a full million more than that third line plug should have got.
yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, that was when they were just trying to reach the floor. I think starting next season, especially once the Nazar extension kicks in, especially when Bedard goes from the league minimum ELC to like at least on a bridge deal, $8 to $9 million, then it won't be offering some of these kind of deals. And I think it will be actually trying to acquire players at a reasonable cap hit to help the team now. But yeah, I agree with you on this. The fact that it doesn't even kick in this season and people are like, ah, oh, like whatever. It's weird for a guy that has been so up and down. I don't know how he could command $5.833 billion. Like Logan Thompson, I know
Because
that was before like
Chicago's
the big.
desperate.
Yeah, I know that that was before like the big salary cap increase like jumps. But like Logan Thompson got $5.85 million on a 6 year deal, and he was consistently good in Vegas. Then came over and Washington, and for the first 2 months, him and Connor Hellebuck were like tied for the best goalies in the NHL. So like, I agree with you. Like, it's not even the prior deals were just veterans that could have ring chased and taken, but would have made like 30% less money. And there's like, screw it, I'll just take the money now. This one is not that. It's not like you had to in order to attract him, because I don't think that the market for Spencer Knight was that heavy for him to be able to demand 5.83.
Yeah, I'm just the deeper Chicago gets into this rebuild, what are we on? Like year 4 of purposely rebuilding now?
Again,
Like I'm not seeing any real progress to make me feel encouraged in their direction.
I think this is the first real season, just because like last year they just had Bedard, Vlasic, I guess, but he wasn't even a Kyle Davidson pick. Versus this year, Leshinov, Renzel, full season of Nazar. Like I think this will be the first season all over more where we can start drawing not conclusions on the rebuild, but start saying like, oh shit, like this really isn't going good. It Last year they were supposed to be better than they ended up being. But this year, I think, is the first year where you'll actually have some of the foundational pieces besides Bedard in rookie years, in not even like 2024, 2025 draftees. We're talking about the 2022, 2023 guys that should be effective NHLers next season. So yeah, I think that this is their real year where we kind of start seeing it from Davidson, and they better.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of people on the hot seat if there's still no improvement, even by, like, this year's trade deadline, if it's just like, "Oh, you wanna look for at least optimistic signs, not just, well, let's heading for another top pick this year." Things
Yeah, I
could
think
get
for
rough.
them, I think for them, as long as they're low 70s, mid 70s, and not like anemic offensively or ass defensively, and Spencer Knight posts like a 902, I think it's a solid season. I still think that they probably want a top 6 pick. If they're like a 65 point team and teams jump them in the lottery, then yeah, that's a disaster of a season and they don't end up with Gavin McKenna. I agree with that. But nah, they're still, if they took huge swings, like if they were like Anaheim and traded for Chris Kreider, and Anaheim's further along, don't get me wrong, but if they went for Granlund, Kreider, then yeah, I agree that they should take a huge step. Davidson's kind of betting on the internal growth in the full season of Spencer Knight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's just, again, I'm not sure how much I'm a believer in A, in this group of players in general, but then B, in this like extreme, we're going to let them sink or float without help. But also, other than Bedard, they're kind of all under long term contracts now anyway, or at least medium term contracts now anyway. Like, if Mizar doesn't take steps forward, oh, how many years are we on the hook for now? That's interesting. Like it's the timing feels all wrong for all of their moves.
Yeah, it's tough because like they really nuked it compared to maybe some other situations where you had some guys laying around that were still part of the team and still like kind of young. They had to fully go through it, like a Utah Mammoth that still had like a Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, some of those guys. Chicago fully was, even like the Brinket and Hagel, they moved out early, and you could argue that that was the wrong decision. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, they really had to go through it, and now are just starting off. It's similar to the Iser plan, and they should have got out of it a year or two ago, but like that was another just full nuke. I guess they'd left over Dylan Larkin. But yeah, this is the year. And then even if they don't take a step, they need to be aggressive next summer. I never liked when people were like, oh, Elias Pettersson is going to resign in Chicago, or Nylander, like a year ago, like the 2023, 2024 season. That was ridiculous. But yeah, like midway through this season into the offseason, they need to start getting aggressive in terms of player acquisition.
Yeah, I was thinking they could have potentially been a spot for Marner this summer, but the total lack of any sort of improvement last
I
year.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like, that's just so aggressive when you're so far away. Ehlers, I would have liked at that 6 year, $8.5 million to give Bedard some help. But Marner, that's too big of a commitment for potentially to give. It obviously would help Bedard's development, but it's just too much money, and you're rushing it a little bit. You want to move on to the mark, something that we're going to agree on, probably the Marc Andre Fleury PTO.
Let's do it.
Marc Andre Fleury, after a year-long retirement tour in every stop at every city, then going to World Championships because he wanted to play with Sidney Crosby one last time and take it all in. Now, still isn't done. He signed the PTO with the why am I blanking on this? Pittsburgh Penguins. And yeah, he's going to play a preseason game, even though he hasn't played for the Pittsburgh Penguins in what, 8 years. He's going to retire a Penguin. I know I'm being a hater, lame. It is cooler than like a 1-day contract. It's just, it's been nonstop Marc-Andre Fleury, retirement. For, in my opinion, not one of the all-time greats. That, like, God bless the guy. He seems very nice. Excited for this to be over. And also part of it's because he played in Metro my entire life, and while the Pittsburgh Penguins were dominating the Islanders. What do you think? You got to be a hater on me
No,
with
I
me on
mean,
this, right?
no, I'm sure the comments will be hating on us both because everyone loves Fleury so much. But like, I agree with you in the context of he's been doing this whole year-long retirement tour, including international games. This just feels
The
corny.
international tournament was insane. Was insane. That also, the international thing was taking away a spot from a Canadian goaltender that maybe wanted to make the Olympics in the next couple of years. So like that might be the most insane part of it. This one is fine. And again, yeah, if he didn't do the retirement tour and then just like retired and then was like, I'm also going to do this. God bless you. The retirement tour for a backup goaltender that hadn't been good in 2 to 3 years on the minute. Again, it wasn't even on the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not like he was a one-time, like all-time Pittsburgh Penguin, like just played there. It's just never ending. And I wouldn't be surprised if he signs. Would you be shocked if he ends up signing a contract with the team after this?
Uh, Honestly, no, because Pittsburgh
Yes,
isn't,
exactly.
like, gonna be playing young goalies like that. There's probably no material
Yeah.
difference between him and Jari.
If he comes back and plays, like, it's open season. I understand people calling me lame and like a loser for going for like say that like this is stupid, but if he resigns, that validates everything that I have said over the past year about this guy absolutely loving and dragging out the retirement tour.
Some people like the attention, yeah.
Yeah, again, yeah. The thing is, like, I make YouTube videos, I make content. I obviously love the attention as well. It's just been nonstop. I'm like anti-retirement tour in general, unless you are like truly like if Ovechkin did it, sure, go for it, man. If Kopitar did it, Kopitar's the type that would not do it. He's gonna retire on like June 1st after his team gets eliminated. Go if like
Kopitar's
Kopitar
gonna
did,
be
I'd be like
already on a
interesting.
boat in the Mediterranean when a
Yeah.
press release gets
Yeah,
emailed.
I guess I'm done. I guess I'm done. This is it. I actually like going on the boat too much. See you later. But yeah, retirement tour Flurry is finally coming to an end. Again, it is cool. It's a cooler concept than just like the 1-day contract that is a complete nothing burger. Maybe we'll see more players do it, but I don't think players care as much than like a Marc-Andre Fleury to do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not a very hockey player type thing to be taking the center of attention like that when you're not a featured player on the team.
Is that your dog in the background, or is that a dog in the?
Is that loud? Jeez.
Yes. We can carry on.
Give
We
me a
can carry
second
on.
here. Let me shut the door.
Yeah. Riveting podcasting right now, Babiak. We're gonna leave this in. Babiak's dog is going crazy. We've seen Babiak's cat on the podcast before. Now the dog making an appearance, and the dog is segueing us into our Western Conference preview. We're going to give out our most underrated and most overrated team. We're going to give out our 1 through 8 in terms of our playoff teams, and then our conference winners. You ready?
Yes, I am.
We'll start positive after that Marc-Andre Fleury stuff. Most underrated. We'll do a 3, 2, 1, and then I guess I'll dive into mine, and you'll dive. You're not gonna have the same one as me based on what we talked about earlier. 3, 2, 1. The Minnesota Wild.
Nashville.
Nashville. Okay, I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first because I'm gonna
All
be
right, yeah,
rehashing stuff from before.
I don't even expect Nashville to make the playoffs, but I think purely as far as, like, how bad are they? They're not nearly as bad as their record last year looked. Um, they were worst in the West in PDO last year. UC Saros is fundamentally a good goalie. He wasn't good last year, but he's a better goalie than like half of the playoff teams in the West. He's definitely a better goalie than pretty much anyone who's definitely going to miss the playoffs has. Roman Yossi missed 30 games last year. He says he's healthy now. I don't think they'll end up making the playoffs, but I think people are looking at their record last year and their average age and writing them off as total bottom feeders. I think they'll be much closer to an 85-point team than a 65-point team.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, especially you mentioned the PDO. Yeah, Brady Shea can't play any worse than he did last season. They are gonna have some intriguing youngsters potentially. Hopefully Evangelista can bounce back. They have Svechkov, I believe, at the NHL level next season. They're gonna be much better. And it's actually similarly to a Calgary. You probably hope if you're a Nashville Predators fan that they do suck again, just so you like tear it down. Like being the 80, having 85 points and picking 12th would be like their worst case scenario. But Barry Trotz, after he brought in Nick Hague this summer, it appears like he's gunning for that last wild card spot with an old team.
I mean, does Nashville want to be bad? They were able to pick in the draft last year with Hagens and Martone still on the board and pass on both of them. I'm not sure it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they're gonna take some gritty two-way player regardless with their first pick. Yeah, I like that Predators one. They probably would have been second. I wanted to go for more of a playoff team. So I'm going with the Minnesota Wild. I feel like these Kaprizov rumors are just causing people to think that they're gonna be bad this season, think that they're gonna fall off. I think that he will resign. And yeah, as we talked about before, when he did play as well as Eriksson Ek, their injuries did kind of overlap. They were 108-point pace team, I believe. They were really, really good. They were able to re-sign Rossi for pretty dirt cheap at $5 million. I think Tarasenko can't be any, he's starting to get up there in age, but like his just finishing kind of fell off last season. I expect kind of like Ottawa Tarasenko, if that makes sense. Nothing special, but like 20 goals, 27 assists, effective middle sixer. And I think that Ogren and Urov really could provide like the Minnesota Wild with their first effective third line in a while compared to prior years where it's had to be like Ryan Hartman. Foligno's a good defensive winger, and like not even like Frederick Gaudreau or something like that. Like they've been a very top heavy team within their forward core the last couple of years. Versus this year, some of their young players are actually ready to play at the NHL level, where I think that they're going to be pretty intriguing. Defense core, I think we can both agree, is one of the most balanced defense cores. Maybe they don't have that one guy that's a true star, but Faber, Spurgeon, Brodeen is one of the best big threes. Zeev Boyum is actually going to be able to probably properly run that power play. I believe, forget if it was their power play or penalty kill that was like god awful last year. It might have been the penalty kill, which is honestly just weird. I think it should be better this year with the amount of solid defensive players that they have. But the power play should be pretty good. Having Zeev Boyum instead of Brock Faber, it's not really like that good offensively. And Gustafsson has been pretty good for them outside of 2024. So I think that I'm not going to say that they're in like top tier of contenders in the Western Conference, but they could be pretty good if they start out well. If they re-sign Kaprizov and actually make an aggressive move at the deadline, I wouldn't be shocked if they made the Western Conference Finals. I would be shocked if they won it. They put up a good fight against Vegas last year. I don't know. Vegas ended up losing 5 games to the Edmonton Oilers, but yeah, I just feel like everybody's pretty low on this team, just being like a bleh wild card team. When they were healthy, they were a very good team with young talent.
I would say I'm rather low on them. I basically agree with you on the defensive aspects, but not on the forwards. I still think that forward group is really shallow.
That's
If
fair.
the young guys are going to step up and prove me wrong, sure, I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, I look at those lines, they have 5 forwards that are like productive offensive players. One of them is one of the oldest players still in the league, and Matt Zuccarello.
He
One
doesn't
of them,
age.
Marco Rossi, the team spent the entire summer telling him he was worthless
It's
and
good in
trying
the
to get rid
regular
of him.
season. Yeah. Yeah. Again, as I said, like Urov and Ogren are going to be huge. Ogren had 37 points in 41 AHL games. Urov took a bit of a step back in the KHL, but the year prior was like the best player on the team that ended up winning the KHL, Metalburg or whatever. So those guys are going to be huge, and as a result, you can move down like Yakov Trenin in your lineup. You don't have to play him on a third line. You can move down Marcus Foligno more so to a fourth line role. They actually have the potential of having an effective bottom 6, which I think is something that they severely lack. Like when they played Vegas, that was very apparent, especially once Vegas eventually clamped down on the Kaprizov line. They had nothing else offensively. So I think that that's something where they can actually take a solid step forward and be effective. It's a lot of rookies. Ogren, Urov, Boyum all have to play to what I think that they can be. And I don't even have that high of expectations, and I think they could be good. And Wallstead
I'm
needs to be an
not at
effective
all
backup.
saying he'll have a bad year because of this, but Zeev Boyum looked really bad in the NHL minutes he
Yeah.
got last year. There weren't a lot of those minutes, and I'm sure he will develop, he will get better. But like it's worth saying he looked horrendous at the NHL level last year.
Yeah, you got thrown to the fire. There's no debating that. I don't think he appeared in a regular season game because they were still battling for a playoff spot. But yeah, against Vegas, I remember he had that one turnover when they had empty net, and that ended the game, obviously. But I think a full regular season, not getting thrown
He
to the
got
fucking wolves.
4 no, yeah, no regular season games, just the 4 playoff games. Like, I'm not gonna judge the guy's career off those 4 playoff games, but I do wonder if he might take a minute to develop because he really was not ready for primetime Vegas last year.
Yeah, definitely. But I think in the regular season, he'll have time to adjust. And maybe, I mean, David Yurchek, I loved in his draft year, but maybe Yurchek can finally make the NHL roster and be effective. Like if they have Yurchek as well, their big three, Jake Middleton's pretty solid. Like that is a pretty damn good defense core where Gustafson's really good last year. He can just be good, and this team should easily cruise to a playoff spot. You ready for most overrated?
Sure.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Calgary.
Calgary. Most predictable of
Go.
all time. Yeah, we kind of already talked about it. They should suck, or they want to suck. They probably will suck. The forward core is just like a bunch of, besides Kadri, a bunch of like okay second liners, third liners. Like there's no real difference makers. When you look at the Pacific Division and just the Western Conference as a totality, like outside of the top 6 teams, those teams all tried to get better this summer. Like Anaheim, San Jose brought in a bunch of guys. Utah brought in Paterka. Meanwhile, Calgary did fuck all. So I'll let you take it from here. But it's not even, it's regression to the mean. And then on top of that, I don't think they have like huge internal growth candidates, if some, but not enough to counteract compared to some of the other Western Conference non-playoff teams that should take a step forward.
Yeah, their forwards just aren't good. Um, Nazem Kadri has been mostly good enough. He turns 35 before their opening game. Jonathan Huberdeau is not back. He just put up a career high shooting percentage 12 seasons into his career. There's no reason to think he'll be better than a 40-point player again next year.
Whoa, 50-50. We'll give him 50.
I'll take the under on 50. And then as
Whoa.
I will, yeah. But then as you said, other than Chicago, the bottom feeder class of the West is probably getting better or at least have more candidates for internal growth. I think San Jose and Anaheim should both be like 10 points better than they were last year. As I said, I
Ooh,
think
Anaheim. That'd be 90 points.
yeah, I think that's
Okay.
reasonable given what they have there, assuming that
Solid,
they
solid.
actually play the young guys. Like I said, I think Nashville, who was one of the worst teams in the West last year, they're going to see a 20-point bump. Um, yeah, I don't see how Calgary isn't in like the bottom 3 of the West this year.
Yeah. It's just tough when you do absolutely nothing, and especially with them, they're the one of the few teams like nobody's really a seller right now. It seems like, but they're one of the teams that if they get off to a slow start, they should 1,000% trade Rasmus Anderson. So that's another thing where once they trade Anderson, that would just be telling the whole team like we're packing it in, compared to other
The
teams that aren't
problem
really going to be selling.
the
Yeah,
problem with that is that Calgary really doesn't have a whole lot of sellable pieces. I mean, they
but
should
Anderson would
sell
be.
Rasmus Anderson. Rasmus Anderson is sellable in theory, but A, he's coming off a career worst season. B, he's in line for a big contract next summer. And C, related to B, he seems to only want to sign with Vegas from what we've heard, and Vegas has no interest in making that move, apparently. So, like, Anderson's going out of his way to make himself hard to trade. Kadri and Huberdeau both have full no movement clauses. They're probably not really tradable. I mean, maybe Kadri would waive to go to a contender. kind of doubt it. I sort of assume he signed a retirement contract because he wants to retire in Calgary. Huberto, I can't imagine anyone taking the contract either way.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just saying, like, in the grand scheme of the NHL this season, obviously teams will end up stinking and there will be expiring guys that are out there right now or are eventually out there. But yeah, like San Jose really doesn't have anybody left to sell. Chicago doesn't have anybody really that expiring that is juicy. Like Rises Anderson, hey, next season, like probably him and like Alex Tuck are like the two realistic difference makers on bad teams in terms of expiring guys. So even if they're just hovering around, because I think even in 2024, when they did sell, they were like a 500 team. Like Conroy even admitted then when he had those guys pending, he was like, we can maybe make the playoffs, but why not trade Elias Lindholm? Why not trade Chris Tanev and Noah Hannafin? So he's shown that even if they don't absolutely stink, he'll probably make the right call compared to trying to re-sign Rasmussen. Especially if Zane Parak comes out so strong, which I think kind of like Zeke Boyum, he might actually have a little bit of a development curve the first couple 20, 30 games. But yeah, you have your franchise defenseman that is going to need serious ice time relatively soon. So I think that they'll eventually move off him and they'll stink it up the back half. But I was wrong last year,
Yeah,
so
I
fuck
think
it.
they'll move off of him. I'm not sure they're going to get a ton for him, and I'm not sure they have any forward who's tradable that anyone would want.
Yeah, I
Either way,
think
they'll
that
be
they have
bad.
like
They'll be bad this year.
yeah, I'm trying to think. They have one unrestricted free agent forward, but it's nobody special. Who's your most over? We'll do another one. Who's your most overrated playoff team that you like team from last year that was in the playoffs? I think I'd go with.
Um,
I feel like every team is kind of handicapped fair. Like there's no team that I'm like
I'd
they're
say
gonna stink.
Minnesota, but in a way that's kind of just by process of elimination. I mean,
Yeah,
like I think, if let's do like a casual, I guess, run through of the West now, because in whatever order you have them, I think it's pretty safe
let's
to
just do our
say
orders. Let's just
Vegas.
do our orders. Do you want us to do the orders?
Sure,
For
yeah,
me, I'd probably say
just
for me, I don't think they're overrated, but I could see it going south is probably Colorado. I could see them stinking.
yeah,
I'm not going to have
yeah.
them missing the playoffs, but if they start off slow, fire Jared Bednar. Landeskog is not the same in a full when he's playing more than 5 games in a season. Petrushkin, something happens. Like if it just hits the rails, Mackenzie Blackwood reverts to end of New Jersey Mackenzie Blackwood. I could see them falling off the rails and doing something drastic.
Yeah, I
That's
think
probably
it's
the one
highly
team.
unlikely, like 5% chance maybe. But I look at the West, I see three teams with a pretty similar profile that Vegas, Edmonton, Colorado are all very top heavy teams, very
Mm-hmm.
shallow teams. And of those three, I think the two in the Pacific have enough depth overall that I
Yeah,
definitely
Pacific's a
trust
shit
them.
show.
Colorado is still a team where it's like you're 30-game Cale Makar injury away from the playoffs at all getting really dicey.
Yeah, especially they've been healthy of late, but McKinnon and McCarr have had their fair share of injuries throughout the season. Landeskog, we don't know.
Yeah,
Lehkonen uses
Landeskog looked good in the playoffs last year, but I think it's absolutely fair to have questions about how well is it going to hold up over a full season grind.
yeah, I feel people are acting like he's gonna walk in and be 2022 Landeskog. I'm like, relax. But yeah, let's go through our 1 through 8 in the Western Conference. I'll go first, and we'll just discuss. I'm sure we're gonna have some discrepancies. Knights, Oilers, Stars, Wild, Avalanche, Mammoth, Jets, and the Kings. Kings really only because it's the Pacific Division. I think I'd have the St. Louis Blues having more points than the LA Kings. What about you?
Exact same top four, and not
Okay, I
top
thought you
four,
were about to
top
say top
three in the
eight.
same order there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, Vegas should be great. Edmonton should be great. Dallas, I don't think is going to end up being the 1 seed in the West, but they have the highest floor of any team. They're the most well-rounded playoff
Yeah.
team. They're the most overall solid at all three position groups team. Although I think the high-end firepower of Vegas and Edmonton will keep them up above there. Um, See, I feel like there's so little separation then in the West from I'll say Colorado next at 4, and then
Okay,
kind of
okay, I
like you're
see.
saying, 5 through 9, extremely tight, like not a lot of gap there. I
Yeah,
guess I'll say Winnipeg at 5, but like that's not a confident
interesting.
pick at all.
Yeah, they could
Their
regress.
off-season additions this year were not serious. Serious teams don't add Jonathan Tays and Gustav Nyquist to their
To
top 6. Act like it's an Ehlers
replace Ehlers.
replacement.
Yeah.
But all of that said, I think their defense is basically legit. Morrissey's a legit number one. Sandberg and DeMello are great defensive top 4 role players. Connor Hellebuck is still Connor Hellebuck. Um, so I'll have them up there. Uh,
At 5.
6, I guess Minnesota, which you've gone over why they're good. I'm still hanging on to, I don't believe in that bottom 6 at all, but we'll see. They do have rookies coming in there.
Mhm.
7, I have St. Louis Blues. They were a
Oh,
pretty legit
interesting.
team with Montgomery last year. Once they hired Jim Montgomery as coach, they were what, 5th or 4th best in the West record after that point
Yeah,
in time. Um,
106 point pace, I think.
yeah, they have a sneaky good top 6, I think, in the sense that everyone other than Braden Shen is like the oldest age in that top 6 is 28, I
Mhm.
think. Um, Jordan Binnington, I don't rate super highly, but I generally trust him to at least give you average goaltending. Whereas, Utah's goalie rotation, I have serious doubt.
Dude, Vedrunko was really good last year. He had like a 905 and like 18 goals saved above expected. They should have kept Connor Ingram. They're going to trade him. Probably should have talked about that. But compared to like Capo Kakinen's their backup now, I, I agree on Utah. It's definitely just because I had been hyping them up so much, and rightfully so, because I think that they have so much potential internal growth through guys like Logan Cooley, as well as Dylan Gunther, some other guys potentially coming up to the NHL level, as well as Sean Thursey. Like I talked about with Boston, McAvoy and Lindholm. Sean Thursey and John Marino barely played last year. I think they combined for something like 60 to 70 games. So I think that defense core is going to be much like Oli Motto was playing like 21 minutes a night last year, just out of necessity. By like November, they had to trade for him. And they also brought in, although I don't like love the Nate Schmidt deal because it's a 3-year deal, I think that's solid for next year. Brandon Tanev to kind of round out that bottom 6. I just think that they're a very fun and fast team, and I think they're going to take a solid step. I really like their
They
top 6.
feel to me like Ottawa like 4 years ago and Buffalo maybe 2 years
Ooh,
ago, where
ooh.
everyone's talking about how fun and fast they are, and they're the sexy pick for the sleeper wild card team, and then they actually get out on the ice, and they are fun to watch, and they bleed goals, and they end up with 87 points, and they're 2 years away from being a real team.
The thing is, they were
That's my expectation for them.
even even despite their injuries to their defense core, they were 89 points last year. Really good underlying numbers as well, I believe. Like they dealt with some injuries and they were still ahead of schedule in terms of potentially being a playoff team last year. I get what you're saying from that Ottawa and Buffalo perspective. I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs one bit, but I think that they had been on this linear progression and they haven't really rushed it. Like JJ Peterka kind of just like fucking fell into their laps, and you do that deal every day of the week in terms of 2 solid players that we like for a far better player right now that fits your age core. But yeah, I think they've went from, I did the rebuild or whatever rebuild review on them. They've gone from like 59 to 75 to now 89 or something like that. And yeah, the underlying numbers, I can pull them up, like definitely back them up potentially. I think they were 8th in expected goals for last season, but only 21st in goals for. So even last year, again, 89 points, the offense did not as convert as much as it should have. It's actually their
Yeah,
defense. I think they're kind of,
I believe in the offensive growth. I believe in them being fun to watch. I don't believe in Vegemelka being like an
yeah.
impressive goalie for a playoff team. I think defensively they will really struggle.
5th
I
last
just
season in expected goals percentage at 5-on-5.
That's
Moving me,
impressive.
but but yeah, I just think Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther, another year of them in their early 20s still. I think they're really going to take star steps in terms of a 41 goal season and an 80, 85 point season. They just have a very high floor and a high ceiling, not a high floor, a high ceiling, and I bet on it if I was a betting man, which I am. But yeah, I could easily see that the floor coming out from them if they start out slow. But yeah, I think I'm definitely taking them over like the LA Kings in terms of it. Do you have the Kings as your Pacific third team, or do you have the
I
Canucks?
do, which I
Yeah,
hate, but
it's
like there just
gross.
feels like a lack of options there, right? Like unless Vancouver has crazy turnaround seasons from both Demko and Pedersen, not one of them. They need both of them to get back to peak form if they want to have any serious chance. Like
Yeah.
if Pedersen bounces back, but Demko's bad and their goaltending situation is a mess, they're going to miss the playoffs. If Demko is great, but Pedersen doesn't bounce back, who's going to score goals up there? They're going to miss the playoffs. Um, I think they'll be like a totally fine team. I think they have a decent enough floor, right? I don't think they're going to end up dropping below like 75 points. They're not going to be down with the bottom feeders no matter what. But I don't see them in the playoffs. I do see Anaheim as not a playoff team this year, but this year's team that takes the real step forward that makes you say, okay, next year they'll be a playoff team.
I last year was very big on Anaheim. They had like a 72 point over under, and I was like, big jump incoming. I'm a little bit worried, man. Last year, and again, we agree that it was mainly Cronin that like stifled them in terms of a 5-on-5, in terms of their young development. But yeah, there was really just their goaltending last year that got them to those 80 points. So I think even if they only get to 83, 84 points, and those underlying numbers improve a decent amount, and Carlson goes for 60, 65 points, Cutter Gauthier has 30 goals, like that's successful season. I'm just a little bit apprehensive about them. I think they have a very high floor or high ceiling potentially, but the floor is still quite low.
The floor is low if there isn't the internal improvement, but I am optimistic that, not just the forwards should improve without Cronin. I expect good things from Carlson, from Gauthier, from McTavish, who doesn't have a contract yet, by the way. That's a little bit weird that you traded to pay Chris Kreider's full salary, but you're not willing to give McTavish money. But whatever there. Like, I think those guys will improve, and then I also think the offensive defensemen, right? Jackson Lacombe, Owen Zellweger, I
Very
think
good,
those
yeah.
guys will take steps forward. On paper, they have a lot of guys who could end up being really impressive players with just one step ahead of where they are now.
Yeah, I just think there are a lot of people just like dark horse playoff pick, and I just see what they did last season. I'm like, that was kind of a 73-point team, not an 80-point
Yeah,
team.
I
So
I wanna be
maybe
clear. I'm not saying they're a dark horse playoff team. I'm saying they're gonna take the step forward to be next year's dark horse playoff team.
I think by next year the playoffs should be the expectation. Verbeek should get fired if he's not in the playoffs by next year. I'll be honest.
Depending how this season goes, yeah.
Yeah, back to the Canucks. I think I might end up picking them over the Kings. I slowly became closer and closer to that. The Kings squad, they did have 105 points last year. It's just so ugly what Holland did last year. Like I think their defense is genuinely going to be below average after being the bedrock of that team, and especially when looking at them, the potential age regression that they could have. Kopitar, he's aged fantastic, but if he knows his final season, maybe he doesn't have quite the best final season of all time. Drew Doughty was just like objectively pretty bad by his standards, even at his age last year, coming off that broken ankle. And Darcy
Darcy
Kemper has
Kuemper's the
been
main one, yeah.
so erratic the last couple of years. Even throughout his career, he's been erratic, let alone the fact that he's 35 years old. So I'm wrestling with that one. Definitely doing the Canucks manager Monday made me a little more optimistic of the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, but with the Canucks, I mean, their forward core is a disaster. It's Pedersen, Besser, Heedle, Vander Kane's gonna be like the second line left wing. So like, it's too gross. And hopefully, like, I want for the sake of the NHL, like those two teams to finish at like 88 points, and then like the St. Louis Blues to have like 96 or
I think
97
it's
and
possible,
miss.
yeah.
I think probably is gonna happen. And then finally we could be like, Gary, like this is fucking insane. Like, what are we? We're already changing to 84 games. Just give us 1 through 8, man. Give us 1 through 8, please. Because right now the Pacific is so much worse than the Central Division.
Yeah, it's Pacific looks rough for sure. I can't convince myself at all to believe in Vancouver. I look at that roster and I'm thinking there is not a single guy who makes me say, yes, that's a top six line driver. Not even a top line. I don't see a single top 6 line driver.
Meh.
Brock Besser is clearly a top 6 player, but he's never gonna be a line driver. He's a pure
Quinn
shooter
Hughes
that
is the
needs
line
someone else
driver.
to get off the line.
The numbers on and off with Quinn Hughes are
Quinn
like
Hughes
fucking
literally is, though, with that
insane.
team.
I think let me pull it up. I think that they were like second to last in expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. And like Quinn Hughes's expected goals numbers are still very good. Yeah, they were second to last, only behind Chicago. That is scary. But okay, yeah. One more thing, just want to talk about St. Louis from my end. You talked about a little bit. Yeah, I think they're going to be a good team. I just have Utah kind of taking their spot, and Winnipeg still being a better team in the Central Division. Like nothing against them. They're a team that we've talked about teams with like low floors, high ceiling. They're a team that has a very high floor, pretty low ceiling, in my opinion. And I see them just in the mid to low 90s, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I mean, I don't think even the point expectation is that far off. I'm really just more of saying I think they'll hold off Utah. Um,
I'm
while we
not
talk
sure.
about things that aren't or are sustainable too, Cam Fowler, since he put on that St. Louis Blues uniform, has been like a top 10 defenseman in the league, which is
That's
stupid. No one talks about
that's what
it
I
like
want
it's
to talk
real
about.
because it's not real and they shouldn't talk about it. But
Yeah.
it's true that since he got traded, and this carried over into the playoffs, it wasn't just the regular season. Playoff one series, Blues Cam Fowler was legit a top 10 defenseman.
Yeah, I just that's another part that I wanted to bring up. I'm not sure they're going to be able to replicate quite the success of Cam Fowler and Parayko. They'll still be a very good
Oh,
pair,
I
but
can't
like as you
imagine
mentioned,
they do.
they were a top 3, top 5 pair in hockey. Like that's they're both getting up there in age. Like I think that it's their defense core. It's definitely better than it was 2 to 3 years ago, but that maybe is gives me some apprehension with the age in that defense core of also Justin Falk. Broberg, I think, is going to be solid. Who else is in that? Tyler Tucker and Logan Malieu is the third pair right now. So that's kind of the one thing that gives me apprehension. They
I
did work on the
didn't
bottom
like that
six.
Malieu trade. That one
Yes.
thing gives me pause.
Yeah, I did like the P.S. Suter and Nick Bugstad signings. And as a result, I mean, they got rid of the Bubble Duke, who's on their third line, but the third line's looking pretty solid. Those two, as well as Jake Neighbors. But yeah, that defense core with kind of an erratic goaltender in terms of Jordan Binnington gives me a little pause to put them back in the playoffs, but they're going to be a good team. You want to go over our winner, our Western Conference winners now?
Sure.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Dallas
Dallas.
Stars. Damn it. Yeah. They definitely need the forward core. They now potentially have the star forward, and I think Jason Robertson's going to be also a superstar this season. If Jim Nail, similarly in 2024, if he actually goes out and gets a right-handed defense space, I got to get Chris Tanev again. But that's the one thing really holding this team back, and we saw it against Edmonton Oilers. Although, of course, Edmonton will have the two best players in that series. Yeah, they just need to work on that right side of the defense. I think that this team has to break through at some point if they lose yet again. Uh, I don't know what the hell you do. You already changed the coach, but they have the top six. They have the depth. They have the goalie. Ottinger shows up every year in the playoffs. Just got to be better defensively. And I think, although the Central is very deep, I think that they are kind of the consensus, as we talked about before with the Knights and the Oilers, the consensus best team in the Central heading into next year. What about you?
Yeah, it's just be really repeating what you said. Again, they are strong at all three position groups, which is a pretty big difference from the other major contenders. Vegas and Edmonton have serious goalie questions. Vegas, I have questions about the blue line depth. Edmonton, I have questions about the bottom six. Dallas, I don't really have any questions anywhere. It's just like, will this group of guys finally break through, or will McDavid pull magic out again, or will
Mm-hmm.
the Eichel Marner combo pull magic out? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, every single year they've ran into either Vegas or Edmonton, and they've just had a little bit more of offensive juice. Matt Duchene has to be way better in the playoffs. He's a guy that is consistently not showing up for them. Jason Robertson honestly has to be better in the playoffs as well. But yeah, if they get more progression from Wyatt Johnston, if they get more progression from Thomas Harley, this team is the most well-balanced team by a decent margin in the Western Conference. The highs are not as high as some of the other teams, but it's consistent, and they're the only team that have made 3 straight conference finals in the Western Conference. So yeah, that's who I'm putting it in right now.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think you
there's
can argue Dallas was the third best team in the league last year. I think you could
yeah,
argue they were the third best team in the league 2 years ago.
yeah.
Like it's not at all a stretch that it's, sometimes it's not even about being better or worse. It's about getting like 2 lucky bounces in May to finally
Mm.
get over the Edmonton hurdle.
Yeah, and it's like their weakness is, although right-handed defense is a very highly coveted position and there's a scarcity of it, it is very identifiable. Like Jim Mill, although last year you swung for the top end forward, which they did kind of need instead of address right-handed defense. Like surely this season he has to know in order to get them over the hump. He needs to be aggressive. Maybe that's Erasmus Anderson. They can't re-sign him obviously with the restricted free agents they have next summer, but maybe he just fucking goes for it in terms of that. But yeah, compared to like a Vegas where they're probably not moving off Aiden Hill or something like that, and there could be some other problems that arise in Edmonton, they're rolling Stuart Skinner again. Like Dallas, just get a good second pair right into defenseman, throw Heiskanen and Harley in the same pair, and you should make the Stanley Cup final, hopefully.
I think so too.
Okay, well, that does it for this episode, around the 1 hour and 11 minutes. Thank you guys for watching. Next week, we shall do like our Eastern Conference preview, probably talk about some news around there. We might also just do our awards during that. Actually, no, we're going to do Eastern Conference preview and then awards and then like Stanley Cup winner. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. The pods are going to be more frequent going forward now that we actually have NHL games to talk about. I am biking across Long Island in, when you're watching this, 8 days, September the 27th, raising money for 2 good charities, the Movember Foundation for Men's Health and Men's Mental Health, as well as the Brain Tumor Society. We greatly appreciate it if you could toss some money towards those donations. It's in my link tree. Babiak's going to be helping me out with that journey. We're using his Honda Accord, right?
Yes.
It's going to be very fun going from Brooklyn to Montauk. Yeah, Babiak, anything else you got to say?
Yeah, donate. It's a good cause.
Yeah, donate, man. We'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.